Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm super excited to be here. So, here with JR Butler, and just correct me on the pronunciation. Is it Syndra?
Yeah, spot on.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure. Awesome. So we are talking about a lot of good stuff today. So basically, how to actually hit your goals every month, how to work backwards, figure out what metrics you need. This is one of the biggest things that really anyone in sales struggles with. I've definitely been there myself, like not totally knowing, exactly what I need to do every single day to make sure that I'm hitting my goals. So, really excited that you guys are going to be talking about this today. I do just want to let you introduce yourselves really quick. But before we do that, I just want to let everyone know that Sindra and JR want to answer all of your questions. So, wherever you're watching, if you're on AirMe or you're watching on LinkedIn, just pop them in the chat and they will get to those questions. So, I will let you guys introduce yourselves and the webinar, and then you can take it away.
Well, thank you, Adriana. So I'm Sindre. I'm a classic Norwegian Viking. Moved over to New York in 2019 and a bit back and forth between Europe and the US right now. CEO and founder of SalesScreen, a sales gamification platform that really takes your sales process and puts it in that next gear, making the tedious work of sales fun and exciting. At least that's the mission. And with me today, I have a good friend, JR Butler.
Yep. JR Butler. I'm the CEO and founder of Shift Group. If you're a classic Viking, then I guess I'm a classic Boston guy. Born and raised Boston, Massachusetts. Split time now between Boston and Florida. And my company is a company that helps former college professional and Olympic athletes, as well as military vets, break into the exciting world of B2B technology sales. So we're really a training and recruiting firm, and I'm pumped to have this conversation with you today, Sindra.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here, and glad to have all of these people joining live as well. So hope we'll see some questions coming in during this session. We know it's crazy times out there. We just entered a new calendar year, and obviously people are looking to us and asking like, what are we foreseeing for 2023? And what's going on? And honestly, my first reaction to that question is probably it's an extension of the second half of 2022. That is the unfortunate reality. It's time to really double down on the hard work, and there's never been more important than now to build pipeline yourself. You can't really rely on anything anymore. It's up to you to make this happen, and that's a bit of what we're going to talk about in this session here today, on how you can bite-size your work and make it happen every month. So I don't know, JR, what are you seeing for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, our kind of yearly theme this year at our company is tough times don't last, tough people do. And I think the reality is it's going to be harder than it has been to hit goals, to get deals across the finish line, to just get people's attention to begin with, to build that pipeline you're talking about. So I think it is an extension of the back half of 2022, but pressure makes diamonds. It's a cliche, but it's a saying for a reason. Some of the best salespeople I know started their career in 2008 during the real last downturn. And, they developed habits that made them wildly successful when we were in a bull market versus a bear market. So I think a lot of people, as much as there is some, doom and gloom, just realize that this is a huge opportunity for you to develop amazing habits that are going to carry you for a long and successful career. So it's try to stay positive. My message to my team and my message to any salespeople out there is to focus on controlling the controllables, because there's stuff that we can't control this year. And, that is what it is. But if you're doing everything that you can control, then you're going to be in a pretty good spot. And hopefully we give you some ideas of those things that you can control in 2023.
Yeah, For sure. And just to add on that, I think 2023 is similar, at least the start and the second half of 2022, as we've seen in 2008. But also, for instance, when COVID broke out, there is this level of panic and fear spawns fear, I guess, and people are sitting on the fences and are cautious about their spending, and that means it's hard to get new opportunities into the pipeline. But it also means that if you keep on being consistent in your work, people will read what you're saying, and your value proposition is probably getting through. So what I've seen in those other times is that work always pays off. So when it turns, and it's going to turn sometime, hopefully in 2023, you're not only going to have a healthy pipeline at that stage, but you're going to get so much from that labor or that work that you put in earlier in the year that just comes in almost like inbound or organic. But the reality is it's actually done by yourself. So hang in there. Better times are coming. So, let's talk a bit about building good pipeline habits. And I think one thing that's for sure, you always have to kind of start with a goal. So, of course, everyone wants pipeline. We want as much pipeline as possible. But what is the strategic goal given this bear market? What is your plan to get there? Do you have any perspectives on that, JR?
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, right? Fail to plan, you can plan to fail. So I think, my big thoughts on pipeline habits are, you set your goal and you work backwards from that goal, but there's activities and there's ways you spend your time on a daily basis that lead to really good outcomes. So I think understanding that goal, and we'll talk about breaking it down into kind of smaller habits, but I think it starts with really understanding the skills, habits and processes that good looks like, right? So really working with your leadership, working with your organization to understand, when people have success, what are the things that they're doing, and making sure that you're building into your daily, your weekly, your monthly, and your quarterly cadence all the habits that lead to really good outcomes, right? And again, in a downturn, those outcomes might not come at the same clip that they were before. But if you're doing those things to the point you made earlier, Sindra, people are seeing the message. If you're sending really relevant and personalized reach out, you might not get an email back, but they're noticing, they're picking up on it. They're understanding the problem that you solve and how you solve it uniquely and why that matters to them. So although it might not be top of mind at that moment they get your email, that's really important. So it's important that every time you're engaging and interacting with a customer, even if it's through an email box or a LinkedIn message, it's important that you're paying attention to the details and using those kind of skills, behaviors, and processes. And like I said, it's a really good time to practice those things and get really good at them.
For sure. And I think building good pipeline habits is what the true essence of this webinar is all about. Because once you have that goal, either if you're a manager or you're an individual contributor trying to build pipeline yourself, you have a goal, and now you have to take a learning from the page of RevOps people. You have to look at okay, how do we get there? How do other people get there? If you break it down, let's say into a funnel, you could say that opportunity, I'm going to try to go for 5 every month. All right. What comes before you get that sourced into an opportunity? Well, obviously you need to set a meeting. So how do you set that meeting? Well, there are many ways to do that, but probably it's a mix between, LinkedIn touch points. It's cold calls, because cold calls are, let's face it, a great way to have a person make a decision whether they want to, take that meeting and learn more or not. But you probably need to warm them a bit up beforehand. So some of those, emails and LinkedIn messages and other touch points is good. But how many do you need? Break it into your own funnel in your own organization and see what is the tinier stuff that you can control. How much do you need of that every day, every week, every month to hit that target consistently? And then obviously we're going to also talk about, quantity versus quality. But I think you probably have some ideas around bite sizing your goals, given how you work with lots of athletes as well, JR.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously in athletics, right, the goal is typically a championship, right? So when I think about the parallels from sports to sales, I think the championship as a sales rep is hitting that quota number at the end of a quarter, right? And the way that I've always operated as a salesperson and a sales leader is looking at, okay, say, I'm not a math guy, Sindra, so I'm going to use simple numbers. If my goal is $100,000 for a quarter and my average sales price is $25,000, then I know every quarter I need to close 4 opportunities. And then you break it down from there and you say, okay, how many evaluations do we typically do that turn into deals? And it's, say you have a 50% close rate on your evaluations when a customer actually tries your product, then obviously you need to get to 8 evaluations within a quarter, right? And whatever the stage is before you do an evaluation, typically that's like a pipeline stage, a qualified opportunity. If your conversion rate there is, say, 25%, then you need to get to 32 pipeline opportunities in order to get those 8 evaluations. And then you should know to your point about RevOps and insight to how the data works is, okay, I need to get 32 opportunities. In order to get to an opportunity, I typically need to have, 60 meetings, say, or 64 meetings, maybe half your meetings turn into qualified opportunities. So then you've got, okay, I got to get 64 meetings. And in order to do that, it goes right back to what you said, Sindra. How many calls do you have to make to get a meeting? How many emails do you have to send to get a meeting? And then you take that large number and it's like, all right, say it's 1,000 calls. You know exactly how many calls you need to make every day. You know exactly how many messages you need to make every day. And that's really the only thing you control is your activity at that point.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to focus on. And that's what I meant by controlling the controllables. So really understanding that funnel and the conversion rates along every step should really set you up for how you're structuring your day, your week, your month, and your quarter.
I would say so. And more so, like, have that plan that we talked about just now, like share it with your peers, share it with your manager, and make sure you get some buy-in into that plan as well. Because if it resonates with them, you're showing, past conversion rates and activities that you've done, and you've done the math, and you see how much you're going to commit to. And if they say, well, that looks great, then at least you have buy-in on what you can control.
Yep.
So one of the unfortunate realities of this market is that your conversion rates are probably going to drop.
I was going to say that,
yeah, it's out of our control in a way. So we can't really obsess about the conversion rates going down. That's just going to be the reality of this market. But what it means is that our message needs to bear much more weight and perhaps even be more personalized. And unfortunately, what it also means is that you have to double down because it's basic math. You have to do more than of the same quality to get to the goal as you used to before. And this is where I think it comes to an area which I'm really passionate about. You need to build a reward system for yourself because this is tough work. This is really hard work. So if you're not really getting praise for the controllables, like the cold calls, the touch points that you're generating in the email outreaches, you could make that yourself. You could do something intrinsic. Say, when I hit 100 dials today, I'm going to go for a run, and you kind of reward yourself. And you start to release endorphins when you're putting in the work. Obviously, if you're a manager, you could set this in a system as well for everyone. But I don't know if you like reward system. Is that something that you're using yourself in your company, JR, or yourself perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. We have this thing called the company rock. It came through a window at an offsite that we did. We were staying at an Airbnb and somebody threw a rock through our front window. But what we do is we mail the rock out to the employee of the month, and we do it, to your point, Sindra. It's not based off of a revenue number. It's not based off of the things that are out of our control. It's about people kind of showing up every day, putting, hard hat and lunch pail, and doing what they can control and doing their job. And we see this all the time in athletics as well, where, when I played college hockey, we had this thing called the donkey helmet. And we did a contest every week of practice, the day before the weekend when the games were, where we would do a shootout, and the winner would get the donkey helmet. And it was like, these were things that we could control, that were in our purview. And it was really important to celebrate the small wins, especially, when you're going through a tough time in the season. Maybe you're losing a lot of games, right? And I think 2023 is a good example where, you've got to find those little wins. Personally, like an activity goal like that, 100 calls, I wouldn't be rewarding myself with a run. I'd be rewarding myself with a slice of pizza, maybe. But same idea, right? Is like, give yourself a controllable goal that is really about persistence and consistency, and then find those small wins. Those are going to be really, really important this year, I think.
I think so too. Motivation is key to get through this, and I love that. How professional athletes, they're, let's say you're in the Olympics, right? You have this big goal once every 4 years. For instance, in Norway, where I grew up, we have some brothers who love to run track, and their goal was always to be number one. So they train, for 4 years straight, and they put in the work consistently every day. They track all their activities, and not their conversion rates, but like their blood percentage and everything. And like it all kind of accumulates towards that final goal. So imagine that, I don't know, discipline they have. And it's not fun to go out when it's raining and it's freezing, and do a half marathon run. Like, yeah, but they put in that work because they know the reward is there in the end. And we have to take a page out of that book and become a bit of professional athletes ourselves if we're going to persevere in this market, for sure.
Yeah, and you see that kind of like bite-sized goaling in the way that a lot of professional contracts are written for professional athletes, right? Like there's bonuses tied to like certain amount of yards gained by quarterbacks or running backs, or number of catches from wide receivers, or number of assists from a forward in basketball or hockey. So I think, like, companies, unfortunately, comp plans aren't structured that way. But I think leaders can build those incentives into a quarterly structure for their own organizations. And I think even as individuals, we can, once we understand that backwards conversion rate and all the activity metrics we need to hit that conversion rate that we can't control, if you can give yourself a personal contract for wins that you're going to hit when you do hit those smaller targets along the way, it's gonna make things a lot easier for you. You can find those positives in situations that maybe the end result isn't always going to be positive, but if you're doing everything in your control, rewarding yourself accordingly, it's going to make things a lot easier emotionally and personally for you.
Absolutely. But I guess we have to talk about some, do this and don't do that, because the market has changed. And sitting as a CEO, I'm on the receiving end of a lot of outbound activity, let's say it like that. And sometimes I'm a bit surprised how much this spray and pray mentality is still being applied in the market. I think it's probably less than 5% of the emails that I receive that is personalized to me, my business, and our struggles and challenges right now. And we have some amazing tools to help figure that out quickly these days. One which we see in all over LinkedIn lately is obviously Chat GPT, which you can ask pretty much whatever you want, and I spit it back to you. Good tools to get that to that level of personalization quickly. That's going to make you stand out completely. And I'm just saying it. I'm reading every cold email I get, but I probably reply to 1 in 100. So it's a tough bar to get past.
Yeah, and you made a great point, right? Like, I can look at your LinkedIn profile and figure out where you went to college and mention it in an email. But you took it a step further and you talked about, is it not only is it personalized, but is it relevant, right? Like, is it relevant to what we do as a business, what I wake up and think about as a CEO, and the problems and priorities that I have or that my organization has coming into 2023, right? And to your point, right, like when I started in sales, we had, LinkedIn had like, less than 1 million people on it.
Mhm.
And we basically had business journals where we could like read about companies. Now there's so like the amount of information that's out there is wild, that you can find out about a company and really make your message resonate with folks like me and you, but also C levels at bigger companies, and different departments. So I think like it's not just I think some folks tend to over rotate on the personalization and doing that research on your Instagram or whatever, but you also got to make it relevant. Like that's what
Yeah.
great looks like. And I think that's super important. And anytime I get a note like that, Cinder, I don't know if you're this way, but if somebody does a really good job, even if it's a product I don't know, I or need right at that moment, chances are I'm going to take the meeting and have the conversation to learn more, because they earned the meeting with me. Like, I sincerely believe if
Oh
you,
yeah.
you know,
I'm putting stars in the back of my mind always, and I know that if they reach out to me, they're probably reaching out to other executives and VPs in my company as well. So if they do the same there, it's probably going to be forwarded or brought up in a meeting, and I have that in the back of my mind. So even though I haven't replied, I know that this is a good company. They're putting in the job, they're doing the effort. So let's actually consider this. And I think that relevant message is really a key in this market, and that's why so many people are chanting in social media about quality over quantity. I think that what we're trying to say here is that you still need quantity, you still need to know your conversion metrics, but that quantity needs to be of relevance and quality, and that's why it's going to be tough, because that requires a lot of time and effort. But in this market, there's really only two things. Actually, to be honest, it's almost like one thing many executives thinks about right now, and that's how can we save money. Cash is king. We need to preserve money. So if you have a service, if you have a product that can help save money for somebody these days, you should actually be succeeding quite well. And I can say this with confidence because we have clients in so many different industries. And what we see, for instance, now is that industries like insurance and renewable energy, like field sales, they're booming. People are going into commission-based sales work, and they're selling savings. You will take that call and look at your insurance that you didn't bother when things were going well, but now you take that time in case you save some money. So selling savings these days will resonate.
yeah, yeah. And ROI is like a 4-letter word for a lot of CFOs. So you have to be, you want to lead with that messaging of like, hey, we can drive business value and savings and cash efficiency. But when you get into the nitty gritty and the tactical kind of sales part of it, you've got to get the right people on your side of the table, and you've got to make those savings have to be real and relevant, right? It's and some technologies that I've sold in my career, the savings came from a change in the negative consequences of the way they were doing things, right? So you're doing a certain process this way, and because you're doing the process this way, you're spending this money on this time on this, whatever it happens to be. And like those numbers can't be things that you're making up. You've got to have those hard conversations with internal people to really capture the negative consequences that are going to matter in 2023 is money going out the door that doesn't have to go out the door. And showing a C-level executive where you can capture that cash and reallocate it, or in a lot of cases this year, it won't be reallocation. It'll be literally keeping that cash on the books. So I think that's really, really important. And I think it goes to the question Nick asked in the Q&A here, which is, do you have tips for leaders and sales managers to get the budget. The best way to get budget is to find budget that already exists. It's a lot harder to create budget, and it's going to be almost impossible in 2023. So the negative consequences that you identify have to be real, like lines on their budget that are going to go away when they purchase your technology, in my opinion, this year.
It has to. I think that's a phenomenal tip. Go after existing budgets and find a way how you can reduce them instead of actually creating new ones. And that might require some, artwork from the SDR or even the company itself and how they position their service or tool. But that work is going to pay off big time in bear markets. So one thing that I just want to point out as a tip as well, when you're doing research, some of the best outreaches that I've ever seen being done by my team, but also when I'm on the receiving end, it's the ones where they've actually reached out to someone much lower in the hierarchy, a peer, and ask them, what's the lay of the land? How's it going? And try to do cold outreach on someone who's not a manager, to just get the cold hard truth of like what's top of mind for management right now and how's it at. And if you get some internal tidbits of like, well, actually we're struggling quite a lot with this, and we're looking for a cheaper solution of that, and maybe that's something you actually can help with. By the way, John loves golf. Then suddenly you have a super personalized, great intro topic, a relevant pain point that's being talked about, and you just come across as like, I don't know, almost as like a savior. But almost nobody do that these days. So do your research.
Yeah, like what any sales process guru, harps on the idea of like developing your economic buyer, right? That's really hard to do in any market as a salesperson, right? Like getting to that executive level, the person who can create the budget or even owns the budget, that's hard to do. It's going to be harder this year. Even the next level down is like people preach about having a champion. And a champion is somebody who has both power and influence, right? And there's somebody that, you're able to win to your side of the table and show them that, hey, if you buy this product, it's going to help you with your career or the things you're trying to drive within your team. And those are going to be really hard to develop this year more than ever. But the things that you can do, and what you just described, Sindra, I call it a coach. Like you have a coach internally in your organization. They're easier to get on the phone and respond to email 99% of the time. And they're people that are well positioned in the organization to understand exactly what the pains are, exactly what's going on. And because they don't have, they're not the ones that sign the check or even the people who get access to sign the check, they're going to be a lot more transparent with you. They're going to be a lot more honest with you. And you're going to really get to understand what's going on within the four walls of the businesses that you're selling to versus like only targeting those economic buyers and those champions. So like, 2023 can be the year of the coach, like really getting in there and, spreading peanut butter across the organization at the lower level part of that organizational, hierarchy, to learn a lot more about your customer and become an expert in their business and what's going on with them. I think that's a great best practice for this year that sales reps need to get better at too.
I completely agree. And I think that what we're also implying here is that if you're a manager of a team, make sure that the target accounts are relevant, because not everyone fare as well in a bear market. So focusing on the right types of accounts or your ideal customer profile, maybe even revisit the ideal customer profile because the world has changed, and see who are the personas and who are the accounts that our service or product resonates best with right now, because you have to put in that quality work in 2023. So if you don't do that, you're going to do a lot of quality work on accounts that just can't buy. So it's also, it's not something that each of us can actually control necessarily, but if you have that ability to control it, that's also an exercise I would really put on top the priority list, as well as like finding cost savings or true value that you really can defend to make your goal.
Yeah. Yeah, tricks there are, look for companies who are having positive earnings calls. Their stock's not going, down and to the right if you're selling into the big publicly traded companies. And then on the smaller side, you're looking for companies that have raised cash or, had positive news coming out. Like those are the type, you don't want to go after the companies that are laying people off or, talking publicly about a downturn. You're really focusing on companies that are winning even in a down market. That's where you're going to have the most success.
Absolutely. So I guess what we're asking you to do is to buck the status quo. It's not business as usual anymore. We have to think differently on how we're going to build pipeline. And creativity is key. You also have to go outside your box, really reassess your funnel and what you're doing to get through to the other side and get those opportunities. And there's a lot to this. So I don't know. Do you have any advice on this, JR?
Yeah. I know, like, email, calls, LinkedIn messages, obviously the most common channels, right? But there's other ways that you can connect with people on a personal level. I know, like, one of my favorite stories that I've ever had, was a CIO at one of the 10 largest money center banks in the US. We had a BDR that got us in there. And the way that they did it was they donated, like, personally donated money to a charity that CIO was on the board of. And all they did was send him the certificate, and they made a comment about what's going on in the market and how we've helped other large banks save money. And then, the charity happened to be something that was personal to the SDR, talked about how that disease had impacted their own family. And that CIO immediately responded, put their assistant on copy, and we were on site in New York City like 10 days later. So, like, that sounds like very specific, but like that type of creativity is gonna, in a down market, attention is sparse. Folks are really focused on like large strategic things. So anything you can get to get like their attention in this market, it almost has to be creative in a lot of situations if you're targeting really big people. That's a really good example of bucking the status quo that I've seen, Sindra.
Yeah, I love that one. I was thinking about what some of my sales reps and SDRs have done as well, and I remember one who was like screaming. He cracked the code, because he went into New York City with like fruit baskets and tried to get the people to accept the gift. So that was kind of how he got past the gatekeepers, and people came down in the elevators and were like, dude, what's going on? Like, what is this? And suddenly you got a face to it. It's much easier when you follow up then. So in 50% of the attempts, you actually got the meeting because nobody does this anymore.
No.
So being creative actually might pay off big time in this market, standing out.
Yeah, yeah. It's the analogy I heard from a leader that I had was like getting out on the skinny branches, right? Like everybody's hugging the trunks right now, doing what's easy, setting up the sequences and their sales automation tools, and doing the dials at the times that they're supposed to be doing them. But like getting out on the skinny branches is where you're going to find the really good prizes. My favorite story is getting a meeting with the CIO at Reebok, a guy that I know, bought like some ugly white Reeboks, and then went and like painted them himself. And he had been calling this person for 6 months straight, showed up at Reebok's offices with the sneakers, painted with their company's logos on it. And the assistants loved it so much that they brought him right up into the office, and the Reebok went on to become a customer. Like those are the things that, really, if you really want to get into account, if it's a good fit for your technology, to the point you made earlier of like understanding your ICP, understanding who's the types of companies that can buy, if that's a situation that you're in and it's an account that you guys need to get, like doing things like that are on those skinny branches is going to go a long way, and it's going to give you huge opportunities to differentiate yourself with customers and prospects.
Yeah, big time. And just to get back to the previous point, I think cold calls for some is scary, and I think in this environment you're gonna struggle a lot if you don't fill at least 1/3 of your touch points that you generate as cold calls. It's surprising actually how few cold calls I receive compared to emails. And I very often answer those cold calls as well. That I might regret saying that on a webinar, but the point is, I've that has given them real shots at selling to us because that was enough. That made them stand out. And I think that also, like, cold calls is just a phenomenal way to have a person who has been reading all your emails and LinkedIn messages, and they don't have time, they're doing something else, but they're kind of like processing it and it's building. But when you call them, they have to make a decision if it's like not relevant, or okay, let's meet up next week. So make sure 1/3 of your touch points is cold calls. I think that's extremely critical right now.
Yeah, yeah. That it's crazy to say because I grew up cold calling, but cold calling now is a skinny branch in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
right? That people are hugging their sales automation and sequences tight, where sometimes picking up that phone, catching somebody, an executive on their ride to the office it's uncomfortable. Like, let's face it, right? But that's like, that's called getting to know quickly too, which is, one of the most important skills that seasoned sellers are really good at, is qualifying people out. And the fastest way to do that is not to keep hitting people with email. It's to have a conversation with them and really see if it's a fit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to have your messaging tight and going back to like those skills, processes, and behaviors and habits. But I think if you've got those tight and you get someone live, you can get to know quickly if you execute against your message, and you can get to that yes when it makes a lot of sense to the prospect.
And I'm just thinking as well, like, obviously, this is the Rev Genius community, so there's lots of people also looking for jobs, and I think you should apply a lot of these things that we've been talking about to your potential new employer as well, because we get tons of applicants. But again, there's not many that stands out in that they've actually done the research and figured out what's important for the company, and who's the important people in the hiring process, and can I actually just cold call them and say hi and just say, hey, I left an application and I'm really pumped to join your company and your mission to do X, and like would love 5 minutes to get to know you if you have the time. And maybe they don't, but again, you're standing out, so apply your goal of getting a job on the same principles. Figure out what do you need to do in order to get there. You probably need to apply to many different types of jobs. So, make a funnel out of it and see how you can use personalization and research to actually get your message across and elevate your probability to get into those interview situations.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, this year, especially, you can't just submit your application online. Like, there's gotta be, you are going to get lost in the shuffle, full stop. I don't care how good your resume is. If you're not networking your way around an organization, and it's everything we talked about actually applies to this part of the, the market in terms of those searching for jobs, like the coach, right? Like, trying to identify a connection within the organization of a salesperson or a marketing person or somebody that knows someone that and getting to that person and getting an internal coach on, like, hey, I see there's all these openings. What's going on? What are they looking for? Who's the decision maker? What do they like? And then using that data, using that information to then reach out to that person with a personalized message. So you can use that coaching strategy for your job application. You can use that creativity of, like, when I was a VP of sales, I remember a kid that was trying to get a job with us, literally sent me tickets to a Bruins game because he knew I was a hockey guy, right? Like, of course he got an interview. We didn't end up hiring him, but he did get an interview with us, right? So like those are the types of things that, if you know you're a good fit for a company, you got to do the personalization and relevancy. Again, going back to that, like, what is this company dealing with, and how can I help them solve this problem that they have for why they have an opening to begin with, and then making your messaging creative and wide across an organization, I think is important, not just in prospecting for customers, but also prospecting for jobs, and expect the conversion rates to be lower too. Sindra, you said it, but I'll just reemphasize it, is you're going to have to apply to more jobs than you would in another type of market to get those multiple offers that you want to get, to make sure that you have leverage in the negotiation process.
I think that's unfortunate reality of 2023, but it's also one that you can play to your favor, because if in the end you have something to deliver, it's all about that effort and breaking it into something that's obtainable for yourself and rewarding yourself along the journey. When you've done your 5th application of the day, amazing. Go do something for yourself because you've earned it. And
Yep.
I think that if you're a manager, and we're not talking about job application necessarily, but just in general, like what we're asking people to do to succeed in this market, I would say is like really being self-determined. And that's tough. But if we look at like science and like how do you get people to be self-determined in a workspace, you need to have 3 ingredients. You need to have mastery over the work that you're doing. You need to feel mastery. You need to also have autonomy. So you have the goal, sure, but like getting there is your way. So you need to feel that you're in control over the bite-sized actions that you're breaking it into. And finally, you need to feel connected. So even if you're working in a company and you're trying to build a pipeline, or you're looking for a job, I think that it's also extremely important to connect with others and share those wins. Not necessarily the end goal, but like the fact that you made your 100 cold call or your 5th application of the day, and have someone to kind of like spar a bit with, because it's tough to get rejections, so much of it as well as we are bound to have when going out there and trying to build pipeline or applying for new jobs. So that builds resilience, and it gives you that next gear to really become self-determined, to put in the work and follow the plan and get to goal.
So I love what you just said. And I remember the first time I heard you say it, you hear the word self-determination for an individual contributor and you think, okay, that's on them. But actually, when you take a step back and you think about the 3 ingredients that you just said, a lot of what those ingredients come from is from the leadership team and the culture. Like, mastery as an example. You're, as a leader, you need to show people what good looks like and show them what the things are that they need to master and how to master them. That's so as much as it's self-determination, the leadership team can control whether or not their individuals have self-determination by building an organization and a culture that allows people to master things, right? It allows people to have control and autonomy because of the way you're managing them, because of how you're spending your time with them, because of how you're structuring their day and their week. And then obviously a leadership, number one leadership is making sure that your team feels connected to each other and to the larger mission of the organization. So as much as it's self-determination, a lot of that sometimes falls on leadership. And obviously you can recognize as an individual whether or not your organization is giving you that, and then you might have to take some control. But I think for those leaders that are listening to the call, if you want self-determinate sales reps in your team, it's on you. Like, do you agree, Sindra? Like, a lot of that is based off of the leadership team structuring things that way.
It is for sure. So I think that putting that on the individuals, and often those individuals might also be, young. It might be one of their first jobs out there, and like it's tough. There's so much that you need to master at that stage. So like setting them up for success is going to be extremely important. And especially now that, things don't fall easy, it requires that hard effort of increasing quantity and quality at the same time, which is almost like an impossible ask.
Yep.
Then that is, motivation is going to be key, and getting people to be self-determined and intrinsically motivated to do that work is ultimately something that's up to the managers to really control or make happen. So, but yeah, I'm cognizant of time, and also wanted to let people ask some questions. So we do have quite a lot of people streaming in here. So is there anyone who has any questions or thoughts or tips or tricks or anything they would like to share?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Stand out, Yeah, you could also rip into what we're saying and call bullshit. That's completely fine.
I love that. I love that. I'm from Boston. We feed off that.
Yeah, same here. Pure direct Europeans, but this is unfortunately the reality of 2023, and it's impossible to say when it turns. I've spoken to tons of investors, other CEOs, people working on a macro level in hedge funds, and yeah, I'm hearing a couple of positive sentiments as well. Like there's people believing that the interest rate might even drop after the summer, so that this could actually just be a 6-month thing, and then it turns. Obviously, if you know that for sure, you would probably be a very rich person. But I'm hearing more and more that we need to buckle down at least for a couple of quarters. But then there's light in the end of the tunnel. So usually a recession time or a bear market lasts a fraction of what a bull market lasts.
Yep. Absolutely. We got a couple questions here. Is there a specific way you recommend organizing your day or your week? I definitely have some opinions here. I can kind of lead out, Sindra. I think, it's I think every persona is different, right? So I think you work like anything in business. You should work backwards from the customer and think about if your role is prospecting, think about your persona that you target and how they spend their day, and when based off of that, when do you think you're most likely to get their attention? If that's your number one goal is setting meetings, then that's the number one priority in your week, and you build everything else around that, right? So you build your prospecting cadences into your week based off your persona and your ideal customer profile, and then you structure everything else around that. So here's what I'm going to prospect, and here's what I'm going to work on development. Here's what I'm going to work on the busy work that leads to prospecting, right? And for me, that was always, maybe middle of the afternoon, I was building my list and doing my research and entering it into my CRM so that, that research was there. So next time I called that person, I don't have to do that research again. That's super important. So I think you start with the number one priority. You base that priority and that cadence into your week, your month, your quarter. And then everything else that you need to do, you build a list and you build that into your operating cadence accordingly around that number one priority.
Yeah. I would also recommend using time blocks in your calendar, and stay true to that, almost Pomodorian style. If you heard about that technique where you kind of set a tomato clock and say like, this is the one thing that I'm going to focus on for the next 45 minutes and nothing else, and to kind of try to block it out. But the beauty is if you've started with a goal and you've broken it into the bite-sized actions that you can influence, you know exactly how much you need to do every day. And when you start to do the work, you see how much time it takes, and then you need how much you also understand how much time you need to allocate in your calendar or in your time blocks to actually reach the goal. So again, it's just breaking it into bite-sized actions that you control, and then allocating enough time to actually achieve that goal and staying true to that plan, and try not to be too distracted by everything. But one of our top reps for many years, he had like a good trick, and that was spending 2 hours every day during the evenings after the kids were gone to bed, researching on LinkedIn. So he built the lists and connected with people and just researched those 2 hours before bed, because then your brain is not really at full capacity anymore. So some more of that creative work that you need to do, try to allocate that early in the mornings. At least that works well for me when you need to actually have your brain fully functioning and working on full gear.
Yeah. I want to get into the video messaging because a couple people have asked about it. But before we do that, someone asked about productivity and efficiency. And I want to reemphasize research is a skill. Like being able to research a company and take the relevant information out of that, apply it to your unique value proposition. It's hard to do when you first start. You've got to practice doing it right. And eventually you should be able to get to the point where you can look at an organization in like 10 minutes and hit all the relevant kind of sources that you get information from and build a really good plan on reach out. So, efficiency comes from practice and preparation. So just getting good at that skill of research will drive you to be more productive and efficient, Sindra.
I agree. And these days you have to use ChatGPT. It's so much hype around it. Like I had one of my engineers pass me over a screenshot today of like, explain to how SalesScreen, what is SalesScreen? Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. And he did that with a lot of companies, and the explanations are hilarious.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing way to kind of get attention and show that you at least use their website or brand. So it becomes personable. It gives them a smile, and you stand out. So that's a very timely productivity hack right now.
Yeah, and I don't think someone asked, is it like big triggers like IPOs and M&A and new roles? Is that enough this year? I don't think it is enough this year. I think you got to take it like a level below that or a level above that, however you think about it, to really get folks' attention. On the video stuff, what are your thoughts on video messaging, Sindra?
We pushed a lot into video back in 2021. I remember that was like the big hype at that point. Vidyard was growing like crazy, and we made it like a part of our SDRs and prospecting account executives workflow to always have a goal of like 10 personalized videos. And it did stand out. It does resonate. And honestly, I don't receive many of them.
Me neither.
So again, it's an excellent way to stand out when you have that video, and you show that it's actually a personalized video by holding up, a sign of their name or something that lures them into actually watching that 1 minute or 2 minute clip. But yeah, use LinkedIn. You can actually send videos or record videos using LinkedIn. Doesn't cost anything, and send it over using the mobile app. So it's a very quick way to get out personalized video messages that stands out, because most people, if they do video, actually use a service and send it by email. So use LinkedIn videos from your app directly to their inbox. That's a good hack.
I haven't gotten a video message in 3 or 4 months, so I do think it stands out. Like, and I didn't even know that you could do that on the LinkedIn mobile app. So if that's something you can do, that's a no-brainer, right? That will definitely get someone's attention, because I'm not seeing it a lot anyway. So I think video messaging, if that's an easy thing to do, you should definitely. It's like, somebody asked about our key takeaways. I think one of my takeaways of 2023 is like, when people ask me what works, my answer is everything. This year, you got to try everything. You got to do everything you can. And if video messaging isn't in your arsenal, you got to add it to your arsenal. Full stop.
Yeah, I think creativity is going to be very important to stand out. So I would say, key takeaways: know your goal, know how to get there, really break it down into actions that you can influence yourself, and that is your plan. And now become self-determined to actually do that consistently. Not like a New Year's resolution that on average takes 17 days before people break. Like, really do it for a full month at least and see the results yourself. It's going to be amazing. You're going to up level your quantity and your quality. just by having a good plan and sticking to it. And then obviously, once you start to have the benchmark of your own data, no RevOps person going to tell it to you, make your own spreadsheet and figure out how you're doing and your conversion rates are developing. And if you're seeing that you're pouring energy into personalized emails and they're falling mute, put some of that time block away from emails and into personalized videos on LinkedIn. And then you run that experiment for 2 weeks and you see how the conversion rates are influenced. So now you're in full control over your own pipeline building habits and how you're going to get to goal, because you know the actions that's needed to do it and the conversion rates, and you're experimenting, being creative to improve your conversion rates. And I know not everyone is a mathematician like me, but at the same time, this it should be doable, and it is definitely a good tip.
Yeah, if I can do the math backwards on a quota like I did live right now, I'm the furthest thing from a mathematician that you can possibly be. So anybody can do it. And the only other key takeaway I would add to what you just said, Sindra, is reward yourself for those smaller activities that you do. Right, find a way to celebrate those wins when you hit those goals. Right, it's one of the reasons people don't stick with stuff, is because the only thing that they're thinking about is the outcome. You've got to enjoy the process. You've got to enjoy the journey, and you've got to enjoy those smaller steps and give yourself rewards along the way. That's the biggest takeaway I've gotten from getting to know what SalesScreen does and you, Sindra, is that's super important.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, JR. It's been a pleasure, everyone, and I hope that we were able to give some takeaways for the ones tuning in as well. I think that's it for us for now, and for sure, reach out to us on LinkedIn, cold call us, or send us emails. We're answering, we're reading them, and I hope to see lots of connection requests after this. But thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.